Eftersom det svenska medielandskapet framförallt befolkas av vänsterliberala aktivister bad jag er, det svenska folket, att skicka in era frågor till tyska AfD. Och för att besvara era frågor träffade jag Maximilian Krah som är en av partiets ledande och mest kända politiker. I intervjun pratar vi bland annat om återvandring, cannabis, svensk politik i form av Sverigedemokraterna och Alternativ för Sverige, Ryssland och de ständiga nazistanklagelserna. Do you think that the AfD will be forbidden in a soon time frame?
No, I don't expect that. You can't forbid 20% of the population to have their own opinion. You can't make a party that is elected in some parts of Germany with about 40%. So this would be such a crisis of democracy that I don't expect that the elites will try it. And now even more with the new US administration, that seems completely impossible.
What does the AfD think about a possible legalization of cannabis?
We are not very positive towards it. I mean, look, on the one hand, we will not go after one person's private life. But on the other hand, when you make it illegal, then too many people will take it. And usually I say marijuana is for losers. So it brings you in such a permanently everything doesn't care situation. So I would say if you are a young person, you deserve better than to take cannabis. So there is a lot. The life is much more exciting if you enjoy it without drugs. So we don't like it. We know that many people do it, and if you do it once or twice a year, no one will be angry about it. But I don't think to normalize it and to say just do it on a regular basis is not the right way. It does not make you a better guy. It does not make you sexy. So forget it.
Who is exactly going to remigrate?
First, since Merkel opened the border in 2015, we had an influx of about 8 million people. Take the Syrians, majority of them is still on welfare. So you can't go to another country and live on their cost. So from my perspective, first, kick out the criminals. Second, kick out those who live on welfare for years. But to make that clear, we have people who live here in the second and third generation. They vote for us. They have nothing to fear. We just close the border and we kick them out who are quite freshly here and live their whole life on welfare because we think they will never succeed in Germany, and for them, their old home is a better place.
Will even second and third generation migrants be deported?
As I told you, no, we don't plan this, and it's quite the opposite. I mean, I'm the first right-wing politician who really made a campaign to win those votes. So I'm now the most popular German politician among Germans from the Turkish community. They are also very critical towards the open border policy of the established parties. So they want to close us the borders, and because they say we want respect for what we did, what our parents and grandparents did when they came to Germany in the 1960s and 70s, and we cannot allow that now the Syrians come, that they compete with us on housing and on jobs, and that they don't have to work. So it's not an ethnic clash. It's just a question that those who work here, who pay taxes, that they don't want that their country is moving into a shithole.
Do you know anything about Swedish politics? And in that case, is there any particular party that you support?
That's difficult. I mean, we see the Sweden Democrats in the European Parliament. And I mean, they belong to the same, you would say, right-wing bloc. But of course, when it especially comes to foreign policy, they had a very different stance compared to what we did. And somehow they sounded a little bit like German Christian Democrats. So when they now listen to Trump and J.D. Vance and what they say about Ukraine and global politics, I'm not sure whether they are so happy as we are. So then we heard about the Alternative for Sweden, which is quite interesting project, but from what we see, it's not flying.
If they had any cooperation with Swedish political parties in the past, and do you have any right now?
No, we never had, since the Sweden Democrats are part of the ECR family in the European Parliament. And we used to stay with the ID, Identity and Democracy, and now have our own group, Europe of Sovereign Nations, ESN. And insofar we know each other, we talk to each other, there is no firewall between us and the Sweden Democrats. But especially when it came to foreign policy, they were on another track. And I wonder what they do now since the United States have changed their policy.
What do you think about Russia?
We don't consider Russia to be our enemy. We never did. We criticize the established parties for warmongering. We are completely in line with President Trump, who says that this war in Ukraine has never broken out with him being president in 2022. We always urge German politics to stop sanctions and to stop delivering weapons and to be in favor of a diplomatic solution, more or less the same what the new administration is doing now. That said, we think it's a tragedy that Europe and Russia became enemies. We think it is a mutual benefit to trade and to have cultural and academic exchange. We think Russia is a different country. We have lot to criticize within Russia, but it's not our country. So let the Russians be Russian. And focus on peaceful partnership with mutual benefit. And please stop to tell us the legend of the crazy Ivan who wants to overrun Europe. That's bullshit. This is a 1941 warmongering lie. Russia has a lot of problems at home. And it's better to talk to each other, to trade with each other, instead of creating a new Cold War.
What does the AfD think about a possible flat tax rate?
We have, as only German party, a proposal to a complete reform of the German tax system, which is a ridiculous system. That includes not a complete flat tax, but it includes a three-step system. So it's not completely progressive. You have three different tariffs. So it's a kind of progression, but you have step one, which is a very large fraction of your income, which is completely free of any income tax. Then you have a middle system of, I mean, since we are not in government now, so we don't have the exact numbers, but which is lower than today. And if you are a high income, then you pay for the last part of your income. Once again, a fixed flat percentage. So it's a modified flat tax with a three-step, with three different fixed rates.
If you would take power, would you stay in the European Union, United Nations, and the World Economic Forum?
I mean, Germany itself is not in the World Economic Forum, as this is a private organization. So definitely we are highly critical towards the WEF. What to say on the EU? On the one hand, we say European countries need a forum of partnership. We need free trade. We need a common trade policy. We need some regulation that we only can do together. Not because Germany is too small to do it alone, but you know you have so many small countries that are unable to compete with countries like China or the US, so it's impossible. But the EU as we have it today is a threat to wealth and prosperity of all European countries. It's not just because we pay too much into the EU. The EU regulation itself is blocking Europe from growth, from innovation, and from taking its share part of the future of the world. So we need some kind of European community, but we don't need the current EU. So what we would do is we would create a new kind of a welfare zone, of a zone of trade, of a customs union, of correspondence and exchange. But definitely we would try to bypass what is now called the European Union.
Is there a possibility of any coalition with the other parties? And what do you think about the BSW?
I mean, all the other parties tell that they don't want to have a coalition with us because they call it firewall. Now, things are changing. You know that J.D. Vance is today in Munich, and he told the Christian Democrats that he expects that they talk with all parties, and that especially they consider a concept of firewall against the second largest party in Germany as at odds with democracy. So things are moving. The world is changing, especially thanks to the Trump administration. That is a complete game changer. So we always told the public that we are willing to go into government, that we are also willing to form coalitions for the sake of saving Germany. But it's now the others that say they will never do. That is not our problem, because we can grow because the others are unable to tackle just one major German problem. But of course, we are in politics because we want to run the country, we want to govern sooner or later, and we will see what happens concerning Mrs. Wagenknecht's party. It's an interesting project. It's a traditional left. It is a party that stands for the work. It's a classical socialist concept to support blue-collar workers, low-income people, and to combine that with a more nationalist approach. It's a new trend that the left has gone vogue, that the left is universal and globalist. So all left-wing parties today, except BSW, are not traditional Marxist left. They are left liberal, just woke. And what Wagenknecht is I would call it a contemporary version of a Marxist approach, focusing on economy, having an approach to analyze economy by group interest instead of individual homo economicus. And she combines that with a more national thinking. So it's interesting. I think there is a market for her concept. Especially in East Germany, we share some segments of our voters with them. Nonetheless, they don't want to form a government with us. We are open for talks with everyone, even with them.
How can you be Nazis? It's 2025.
We are not Nazis. I mean, you know, everyone who is right of the Christian Democrat is labeled as fascist, Nazi, etc., etc. And then I usually make the joke and ask them, what theory on fascism you mean? And then they don't know just one. I mean, fascism is a totalitarian ideology which existed between about 1920 to 1945. And everything after that, especially in 2025, is neither fascist nor Nazi. That's just ridiculous. I mean, the left knows that fascism is ended in a catastrophe, so they label everyone who they don't like as fascists. I mean, I laugh about it.